Yo, my goddamn plant died. Y'all see this? It's been so long I've been in this room. So long since I recorded a video. I know. Let's be honest. The UFC was kind of boring these past few months. UFC 282, UFC 283, meh. Good fights, but the hype just wasn't there. And I wasn't going to force myself to make videos just because, right? I want to come on here and speak my mind when I feel it's the right time. And I mean, this is the right time to do it. The UFC is like skyrocketing in terms of matchmaking for the year. Let's be real. The fights coming up are going to be crazy. And this weekend starts, I think, a murderous rows of pay-per-views with Makhachev and Volkanovski. And I'm the king of promoting that event. Let's be real, the UFC hasn't done a very great job in terms of promotion for that event. We can just go look. Look, I'll show you some real quick. When you click, I was trying to look for basically just the event so I can go over each fights and break it down with you guys. But when you go and click on like literally the main page, it's not even UFC 284. It's Power Slap Road to the title. And we're 3 days away. You have to go. It's the smallest shit over there. Like the UFC 284 is like this little itty bitty ad at the bottom of the Power Slap promotion. It's funny. It's really funny because nobody cares about that shit, but it's still, seems like they're trying to promote it to us. So I guess maybe at some point people are gonna start like eating it. Like I've seen, somebody start something new. A lot of people hate on it. And I don't want to be that guy just like hating on something. I just feel like that's deserved hate. It's not really a sport. It's not really something also like when you look at it long term, it gets boring after a while. You watch a few slaps and you're like, okay, then what's next? You know what I mean? But anyways, I just find it funny that when you click on the UFC website, the main page, Power Slap comes up even before UFC 284. But anyway, and let's just get into it. I'm not gonna talk too much. Let's just get into the nitty gritty. It's crazy, man. As much as I love the freaking UFC, bro, every single time I do a breakdown, I realize that I'm not a hardcore fan as much as you guys are, man. I'm just not. Like, I watch so much UFC. I have a channel dedicated to it all, so I study a lot of things about it. But every time I go and look at these things, like the prelims, early prelims, I barely know these people. I don't think y'all know either, but y'all gonna act like you do. It is what it is. Shannon Ross, bro. Tyson Pedro, I heard about him because of Izzy. I think he's in the same camp or something like that. Jimmy Crute. Okay, well, we're gonna start with the main card, obviously, because I can't even go down prelims. I barely know anybody in the prelims other than Pedro, and I don't know who Modestas Bukauskas is. I wouldn't be able to tell you. Let's just start with the main card predictions that are going to be, as usual, the most biased predictions and takes you'll see. I'm trying to be realistic here and give you to the best of my knowledge, but I don't know many of these people either. Like, I've seen Jimmy Crute fight. Alonzo Menifield, I've heard people say that he's good, but hasn't really performed as well. But anyways, all of that to say that don't take my takes too seriously. We're just having fun. We're just predicting some fights together. And y'all can let me know in the comments how dumb I sound. But I think I can help myself a little bit. Let's just get into it. All right, Jimmy Crute versus Alonzo Menifield. I don't even know if I'm saying his name the right way. But Jimmy Crute is the one guy that I know. I've seen him fight the past few fights against Smith and against Jamal Hill. For one, obviously Jamal Hill became champion the last pay-per-view, so it's not necessarily too bad of a loss, but he did get butchered pretty fast against Hill, and it did seem like his chin wasn't the same as when he fought Smith. It feels like when he fought Smith, he was getting, obviously Smith and Hill don't have the same power, but I don't know, it just felt like when I watched that Jimmy Crute versus Jamal Hill fight, it felt like Crute got knocked out pretty fast. So yeah, like I said, Alonzo Menifield is not coming off a loss or a KO loss. He's coming off 2 wins. So I would tend to lean with him, even though Jimmy Crute's a bit younger, actually way younger, and probably more potential. I just don't like when a fighter is coming off 2 back-to-back losses. It just doesn't look good. And Alonzo looks so big too. He looks like a big dude with power. You look at their height, 6 foot, the other 6'2", so they're about the same in terms of size. It's a tough one to pick. But I'm going to go with Alonzo Menifield just because of a gut feeling. I wouldn't be able to tell you why, because I don't know. I haven't really seen him fight, but I truly believe that when a fighter is coming off back-to-back losses, there's differences in the way they fight. And maybe Jimmy Crute can prove me wrong. We'll just have to see. But I'll go with Alonzo Menifield with a KO or TKO. Let's move on. Justin Tafa versus Parker Porter. No idea who that is, bro. Y'all know who Parker Porter is? Bro, come on, man. Parker Porter, bro. Justin Tafa, I've heard of him. I don't think he's fought many times in the UFC. I think he has a record of like 5-3. As little as I know, I think that Australians are just tough dudes, bro. You know what I mean? Like Tai Tuivasa. I don't know. He reminds me of Tai Tuivasa, and I believe he can out tough Parker Porter, because I don't think it's gonna be a battle of skills in this one. Heavyweight fighters. Let me click on this shit. See, 5-3 is crazy as a record. 5-3 is crazy. Yeah, let's go with Tafa just because he's Australian and they're tough. Fuck it. Let's go to welterweights. So this is the featured bout. Like in terms of stack meter, this card is not the best. I'll tell you that much. There's not a lot of big names. There's a lot of like young up and coming fighters that can make for great fights. Don't get me wrong, but when you look at the card, like there's not a lot of like name where you're gonna recognize them easily. You know what I mean? So obviously Jack Della Maddalena. Fuck no, I can't say that again. Jack Della Maddalena. Hold on. I'm gonna say I know who he is. I just don't know how to say his name. Jack Della Maddalena. Jack Della Maddalena. Woo! Okay, move on. Randy Brown. Yeah, okay. So I've seen Jack fight. I think he's like on a 13-fight win streak. If I saw his, I think I have his shirt out right here. Yeah, look at this shit, bro. His record is 13-2, and his 2 losses were his 2 first fights as a pro. I'm going Jack because he's on a massive win streak. I think he has some momentum behind him, up and coming. He's a great fighter, and I think it's going to be a barn burner. I think it's probably going to be fight of the night. Randy Brown has a lot of skills too. He's very tall for the division as well, like 6'3". But I truly believe because of the momentum, Jack will be able to pull that off. Let's move on. Jack Della Maddalena for the win. All right. 2 fights that I know about, where the 2 fighters, I know them. I've seen them fight before plenty of time. Yair Rodriguez versus Josh Emmett. I truly believe Yair Rodriguez has way more tools, way more skills to beat Josh Emmett. He's taller, longer, lengthier, rangy. Everything is on his side. The only way Josh Emmett could actually win this fight is if he lands a big shots, and he would have to cover distance, put a lot of pressure on Yair, cut the distance the whole time. He'd have to do it for the whole fight. And I'm saying, like I said, this is another type of fight where it's like a technician versus a powerhouse, and Josh Emmett only needs one. We know this, but I truly believe Yair is phenomenal on the feet, man. We've seen him fight against Max. We've seen him fight against Brian Ortega. We've seen him fight against all those greats at 145, the Korean Zombie. And he just seems to be like, he seems to be up there, man. In terms of striking, I would even rank him pound for pound one of the best strikers in the UFC. One of the best strikers in the UFC. Kicks, striking, countering. He's fast. He's like elusive and very unorthodox in his movement. So, yeah. In terms of a prediction for this fight, I'll definitely go for Yair. I don't know if he'd be able to knock Josh out, because Josh is tough as frick, man. Tough as why am I censoring myself as if I'm like on ESPN or some shit? Like, what? Bro, who cares? Josh is tough as fuck, bro. We've seen it against Calvin Kattar, and it seemed like he just wouldn't give up. He just wouldn't. Like, I'll be honest, I've said this in the deeper dive. I think Josh lost to Calvin Kattar in his last fight. I think he got pretty battered up in terms of damage and stuff. Calvin did way more. But Josh showed his toughness and heart in that fight. He never gave up. He never stopped trying. And yeah, it's going to be tough to put Josh out, completely out. I think if it's going to happen, it's going to be very early with Yair, like in the first 2 rounds. So I'm still coming up with what I'm trying to predict here. Do I predict like an early stoppage? Yeah, I think so. I think we're going to see a early stoppage by Yair Rodriguez. And I've seen a lot of people say even like, oh, Josh Emmett should shoot a takedown on Yair. To be honest, don't sleep on Yair's jiu-jitsu, bruh. If I don't know if y'all saw this, but against Ortega, what dislocated Ortega's shoulder was an armbar by Yair. Nobody's talking about this, but Yair is a fucking spider, a snake on the ground when it comes to jiu-jitsu. He always try to grab arm, legs, limbs, neck, everything that he can find, he tries it. Like I said, Yair's ground game is very, very underrated. So if Josh shoots some lazy takedown, I can even see a guillotine, a choke, an armbar, a leg lock, whatever. Yair is that special, man. I truly believe Yair even has a chance against Volkanovski. So we'll see it. We'll see this fight. I think this fight plays out. It's so favorable for Yair just because Josh Emmett kind of have a similar body type to Volkanovski. Obviously, they're different fighters. I think Volk is way more skilled overall and well-rounded, like just as a fighter. But it's still 2 similar builds at 145. So if Yair ends up beating Josh Emmett, he's kind of like going into a fight with a fighter with a similar build. It's going to help him as well prepare for a title fight against Volkanovski if that happens. So I see Yair winning. That's official prediction. Yair Rodriguez with an early stoppage within the first 2 rounds. That's what I call. Let's move on. Main event of the evening. Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. Probably one of the best fights we're going to have this year. Even counting all the fights coming up. When I say best, I mean best. I don't mean anticipated fights. I mean best. I mean, these are the 2 best fighters in the world right now, man. How lucky are we? This is absolutely a dream fight. I just hope nothing happens until that fight. No weight cut issues, no injuries, no nothing, no pullouts. Because this fight is truly special. And crazy thing is, when this fight was first announced, I automatically talked to like people around me and be like, what the fuck? Volkanovski's going to get battered. Like, this isn't going to be competitive. Like, obviously at that time, it was like Charles Oliveira was the king. And I was like, okay, if Islam can do that to Charles, it's going to be a completely domination if he ever fights Alexander. So it's like, it didn't make sense in my head. And I'm not going to lie, I did, kind of bash on that matchup. Didn't really believe in Alexander's chances. But as the fight goes, I mean, as we get closer to fight night and as I study more and more tapes on Alexander and as I've like kind of listened to what he says and what he talks about, I truly favor Alexander in this matchup. I do. I think Alexander Volkanovski will be number 1, the toughest matchup for Islam. And hear me out. I think Alexander Volkanovski is going to win on Saturday night. I truly believe he's going to win. This is it. Like I've said this even in my last video on the main channel where I've talked about Tony Ferguson and Khabib. And I just said a quote that I've heard also from Conor where he said, each fight, every fight, or something like each fight between every man is different. It's a different style. Even if Islam completely dominates Charles, doesn't mean Islam would dominate Alexander. And in my head, it was like, yeah, well, Charles bigger. Charles has more tools. He's a better striker, better on the ground. But like when you looked at Islam versus Charles, it was almost like who's the better ground fighter. And they would fight like this. But Alexander knows where his strengths are and where his weaknesses are. And you heard Charles Oliveira before UFC 280 say, I'll start the fight on my back. I don't even care. Alexander doesn't have this mentality. He knows he cannot get taken down, and if he does, he has to put everything into trying to get back up. And he's been working very, very hard to try to make sure this happens. And I've seen also Islam's interviews. And he's very, very, very calm, and that could be a good thing. Don't get me wrong, that could be a good thing, and I could just totally be wrong. But from what I saw compared to UFC 280 against Charles, you saw a more agitated Islam. He wanted to prove a point. It feels like now he has less to prove. He's less worried about Alexander, and that's a great mistake. Very, very great mistake that Islam can make. So, in terms of who's better, I truly believe Islam's a better fighter overall. But who I think is going to win on Saturday, I think Alexander's going to win, because he talked about this on the interview with DC on ESPN. He said there's heart involved. There's will to win is very, very important. And Alexander, that's his biggest strength. It's not even his striking. It's not even his wrestling. It's not any of those technicality. He's not the better fighters. And we've seen this. We've seen this with Brian Ortega, who has probably the best jiu-jitsu at 145, get caught in a submission that nobody else would get out of. And he did. He found a way. He finds a way every time. I am calling it. I'm saying I don't see a KO or submission. I think Alexander will dominate Islam. No. Okay, I'm going too far. Chill out. Domination is crazy, bro. I ain't gonna lie. Domination is crazy. But, okay, I'll say Alexander is going to win by decision. That's what I think. No split, no arguments, no robberies. I think Alexander will win a very clear decision against Islam. Alexander's super defensively sound. Like, I don't see him getting hit with shots like Islam hit Charles with. So yeah, on the feet, as soon as Alexander get comfortable, I think it could be pretty dominant showing on the feet. Islam really needs some takedowns, and because Alexander's so compact, I don't know if he's gonna be able to keep him there and do some damage on the ground, but hey. We'll just have to find out. I'm truly, truly, truly excited for this matchup. This is truly the best fighters in the world right now, and we have the chance to figure out who's actually the best. Yeah, it's gonna be an incredible fight. I'm leaning toward Alexander Volkanovski by decision. Anyways, let me know what y'all think down below. I'll catch y'all in the next one, man. Peace out.